Ashutosh, you can see the screen now and hear
Yes, sir.
well.
Yes. It's not only to me, it is visible to all, sir.
Very good. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Do you want me to wait for a few minutes as students
No,
are joining, or
no, sir.
should we?
We are simultaneously recording it. We can start the session, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Ashutosh.
sir.
So good afternoon, everyone. I hope you are all safe and healthy and doing well today. And we are in a very unprecedented kind of a situation where the whole world is down and standing still because of COVID-19, and at least in India for the last 4 or 5 weeks, we continue to work from home and face the lockdown. But I must tell you that this period has been extremely humbling, and there are also some while everyone is coping up with the new situation and staying positive. It is also important that we adapt to the new way the world has emerged now after this incident, and as we start planning for the opening after the lockdown on 3rd May, I'm sure there will be a lot of new things that people will adapt and imbibe, right? So with that, I'm glad and thank you for the college to give me the opportunity to share with you uh, today's topic, which is basically the career opportunities for law students with multinational corporations. And I've been asked to speak in particular on work culture and skill sets required for working in multinational companies, which can be helpful. So we have been planning this session for quite some time, even before we kind of planned to have our campus placement at your college. But for some reasons, I think today is a lucky day to go through this. So I'm glad that I'm with you sharing the thoughts. So while I think on this mode, you can send in your questions, but I'll take your questions at the end of the presentation, uh, mm, and try to answer them as many as I can within the given time. So let me start with um, in terms of how do I see law students and their career opportunities in the multinational environment. I think let me first begin with, and I can break the problem into many parts, because one is not only expectation in terms of how we see the individual and what are the individual skills and qualities a person should have to work in a multinational corporation. The second is basically related to in terms of how do these multinational companies behave? Do they have certain separate qualities than a normal corporation? And what is that you can expect when you are joining a multinational corporation? And the third is a combination of the first two in terms of what is expected of you as a professional, and what is your purpose, because if you understand the purpose for which you are there in a multinational corporation and what they're expecting from you, I think it will be easier for all of us to modulate and progress towards that. So with that, there are about 3 or 4 sections in which I will take you through, and hope that is helpful. So let me begin with in terms of the individual first, in terms of, because all of you are in college, you have already kind of made your choices in terms of what career stream that you would want to kind of specialize in by now, or you are going through those choices. And I think the legal field has opened up extremely well as compared to what it was when I was graduating from the college on the law school. And the more and more opportunities are now uh, available for the law students as they graduate from the colleges. But with those changes and increase in opportunities, I think there is also a changing expectation in terms of how people are expecting law professionals also to develop in terms of the skill sets. Now, I usually refer to in terms of individual competence to the Delta model, which gives the 3P approach: the people, process, and practice, right? And these are the three pillars on which any legal professional can kind of develop himself or herself in terms of what is the ideal skill set or balance that they require to be a successful legal professional. Now, under the people, I think what is important is that a legal person should not only um understand the strengths and weaknesses of self, but also have a good understanding of whom it is interacting and whom it is, who their colleagues are, what their environment is, and how it can leverage its strengths and weaknesses to leverage in that given environment. And of course, the second one is the process where, as a legal professional, you are expected to kind of not only use your knowledge, but you apply them in the given situations that your job demands, right? Or your clients. And when I use clients here, I think clients are, even if you are practicing, you use the word client, but when we are working in a corporate, I also prefer to use our word client, because we have internal and external stakeholders who come to you for certain services. And I think if you treat them with the same respect or with the same approach as a practicing lawyer would kind of address its stakeholders, its clients, then I think you are in a better mindset to do it. But nevertheless, it does not mean that our behaviors should be the same. I think multinational corporations do require us to uh, to behave and respond differently to this request. And that is what I call the third pillar, the practice, where not only your legal skills are important, but also what is important is how you communicate and how you interact with them. So as law students, I think there is a lot of things. If you expand this 3P model, I think what we are expecting from any law college student from the campus is basically a person who can multitask and is good at several things. So as law students, I think when we talk about the people side, we are talking about personal effectiveness. There are a number of soft skills that add into and make personal effectiveness. I think, and that is what your law colleges and your studies and your curriculum prepare you to do that. Things like relationship management, entrepreneurial mindset, you do several projects. I think emotional intelligence is another area where I think we are getting more and more ingrained into it, and it's becoming extremely important as the workforces are becoming more diversified. Your communication skills and your character, which is important, because I think this is one of the dominant factors where when you deal with diverse workforces, I think it is important that the values that form the individual, they get tested in varied ways, and then that is also where a strong character helps you. But overall, I think um, this is one of the most important pillars of any individual competence for a lawyer, because this is what will make a difference in terms of how successful you are in the environment, right? Because if you are, even if you have good knowledge and you understand the business well, if you cannot present yourself, or people, you are not personally effective in receiving the goals in which what you have been given to you, I think the other two pillars may not lead you to success. But at the same time, what does it mean for law students in terms of business and operations? And let me tell you, your curriculums, that the way they have been designed, it has been designed in a way that many of these things are brought out, are honed, and you get opportunities while you do your curriculum through different activities and different interactions among your colleagues and teachers, and also with external stakeholders who visit your college. I think you get different opportunities to develop on all these three pillars. Uh, the other important thing, I think, pillar, what it means for law students is basically their their ability to understand business, the concepts, because you cannot apply law in isolation. It has to have a context. It has to have an environment in which the laws, the regs can be applied, and that forms the core of your general understanding in terms of the business environment, the particulars in terms of where your company is operating in. um, it also leads into that we are not only interpreting law, but we know how to handle data and how do we apply law under different circumstances, which leads to the third thing in terms of management skills, because at the end of it, what is also important is that you deliver results. So I think that's an important pillar where, and this will require your personal effectiveness skills and your knowledge as well. But the foundation of all this lies on the practice part, which is the law itself. And that is what I think is primarily where you are investing in the law college. It is very much expected that you have knowledge about your subject, you know how to read and interpret law, you have developed abilities for legal analysis, legal research, and at the same time, you can convert your subject matter expertise, your analysis into fruitful outputs, which can create value for the company. So, or a corporation, or the settings that you are working in. And I think those are the three pillars which form how does it translate for any law student in a delta model. So, given that, I think what we are really expecting when from law students is that they have strong personalities, they know what their subjects are, and also they have the basic skills which can help them grow in the organizations where they go from, and these becomes extremely important in a multinational environment. So uh, yes, we are, to some extent, the expectations are high, and also the competition is tough. And literally, sometimes I think we are making um, supermans out of the individuals, but that's also a growth path which I think not only fresh law graduates should be looking at, but this also forms a framework for any law professional in terms of its competency, depending on where he or she is on his career path. So switching gears, I think at an individual level, I think those are the three fundamental attributes that in a multinational environment we strongly emphasize on. And as we go through our selections and create career opportunities for students and we hire, these are the three pillars which we test or which we kind of examine as we interact with different law students on the campus. And also, this is a good framework for anyone to analyze its weakness and strengths and also understand what are the areas on which he or she has to improve and build upon, and which are the strengths that he can kind of leverage and showcase as he goes through the live situations and incident handling and people interactions. With that, I get to the next question in terms of who who do we see as more successful in multinational corporation environment. And um, and we hear this term very often in terms of that multinational corporations have employees with a global mindset, right? And people who have global mindset uh, typically perform better and are more successful than those who don't have the same focus, right? And you would have come across this fact in many forms being said, and we usually uh, refer to this term as global mindset, forward looking, globally focused in a number of ways. But what does it really mean, right? Is it that it is more of a niche term, or does it have a substance, a characteristic, and what really constitutes a global mindset, and how do we kind of bring the employees or the people that we bring on board in a multinational environment more closer to a global mindset? And that probably, I think, is a core fundamental second ingredient in terms of what are the qualities and skill sets that make people successful in a multinational environment. So let me go back in terms of what what does a global mindset really is technically defined as, and then we'll get into the elements of it, that what is that differentiates a, a local mindset, if I can use that word, from a global mindset. And technically we can define global mindset is the ability to recognize and reflexively adjust to cultural signals so that an individual's effectiveness is not compromised when dealing with people from different backgrounds. Now, when I say individuals' effectiveness, we refer to those three pillars that we just discussed under the Delta model. And that is where I think the fundamental, even in a global mindset, rests upon the individual effectiveness. But here we have to measure or see the individual effectiveness in a more corporate settings, in terms of and more of a corporate cultural environment. And in any corporate culture, I usually like this model, what is called as the cultural iceberg model, because what you see in an iceberg is only 1/10 of what really that size of that culture is. So in any cultural corporate setting also, uh, the culture, some part of the culture is visible, like corporates go a long way in terms of not only drafting but also implementing their mission, vision, policies, strategies, and make a lot of corporate presentation, which kind of help us familiarize with the company, its people, its processes, its products, and those are the visible side of a corporate culture. But as you join this corporate, you will soon realize that these are only the external side of a culture. There is a whole lot of elements that work behind that visible culture or a corporate culture that are really important for making people and individuals effective in those settings. And some of them are basically your relationships, your status within the company, your attitudes, the soft skills, your own integrity and norms, and also that of the larger culture. what who are your colleagues, how is the corporate culture behaving, how is the corporate organized itself, and of course there are a number of unwritten rules that you experience within a corporate, and which gives any corporate a character that is so evident, and only employees can kind of describe it as they work through it. So in any corporate cultural setting, for an individual to become effective, I think it is important the individual or the lawyer understands very clearly the visible elements of any of a corporate culture, and of and the invisible elements. And I think in this age of internet, where so much of information is available in public domain, I think this is also a good way of analyzing your corporate choices as you go through selecting and through the companies where you want to work for. Because I think there's a lot of influence which the invisible elements of any of a culture will have upon gradually, in terms of whether you become satisfied or successful in a given corporate culture. So a understanding of that is important. And of course, in any corporate culture, there are hard and soft elements. The hard elements are basically strategy, structure, and systems. And this is a good summary, because when we say a strategy, I think what I mean is what is the company all about? What are its future goals? What is its mindset? What are its products? How is it relevant in the given business environment, or and how does it plan its future? The structure is in terms of how large a multinational is, how is it divided. Sometimes we have multinationals which are governed through the headquarters. They bring across a very strong culture of their home country in the different parts of the world that they operate in. There are other organizations which are multinational, but also they have developed systems which make them very local in terms of the countries in which they operate in. While there are common elements of mission, vision, and values, but how the culture has developed in those companies at a local level or at a country level is much more local and indigenous, and not a common theme of the entire uh, 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 headquarter, so to say, a culture that I referred to in the earlier example. So those are some important elements. So the net takeaway is that every multinationals can have different flavors and different corporate cultures, as depending on how it operates in different departments and the structures that it has created in terms of its operations, which is the third element, which is the systems. Because a lot of this, usually multinational corporations are very well matricized. You will at any point of time have two or more bosses. There may be direct reportings and indirect reportings. You may have dotted reportings into certain functions, but that is what makes the flavor or the character of a multinational, because the whole organizations are crisscrossed well enough so that they can become successful in a global setting. So, and that kind of is very different in its behavior, in very different in terms of how it plays out from a organization which is more country centric, which is more hierarchical, either vertically or horizontally, but it has a lot of local character. It is extremely difficult, or for that matter, a corporation which is family run or promoter driven. And that is an important element, because for any MNC opportunity, I think what is extremely important is a mindset that you are getting into an environment which is very different, diversified, and also very, and you have to work with different stakeholders at different time zones, and and bring out your collaboration skills to achieve the goals that have been given to you. And to help you with the hard elements that form the part of the corporate culture, there are a lot of soft skills that we alluded to that will help you get there. And and obviously the skills, and there are a lot of skills which the companies kind of also bring into their employees, because they want to see their employees behave in a certain way. They want to develop their employees in certain skill sets. Certain values are imbibed in them, and also there is a very strong element in terms of how multinationals measure their employee development, performance, and how their feedback programs run. So and many multinational corporations also have a very strong binding force of values, because that is what kind of determines their communication among the employees and the leaders, right? So this is important, because making any choices about a multinational corporation, I think one should have a very clear understanding of both the hard and soft elements, and how they create or work together to create a distinct corporate culture that MNCs have. So that is an important skill in terms of how a good understanding how lawyers who come fresh onto these organizations should have a view in terms of, or should have done an analysis which basically complements with their personal effectiveness and the and competencies to make them successful. And many a times we have seen people who become extremely successful in these environments, and also we have seen people which frustrates them in these environments, because they are not mentally tuned to those structures. So I think a understanding and adaptability to this change in culture or corporate culture is extremely important at an early stage. uh, and if we kind of break down the global mindset, I think there are about 7 elements that are extremely important, or which characterizes what we commonly refer to as global mindset. And if we can personify any multinational corporation as an individual, then these 7 attributes would be attitude. I think multinational corporations uh, prioritize on their global business expansion. I think one expansion in one country or business in one country is not as important as the development of the whole as a global organization, and that personifies that attitude of that organization very very clearly. Um, the second element of a global mindset is the aptitude. Um the companies focus in terms of bringing the skill sets and developing capabilities in their workforce, even their hiring patterns and development patterns that they induce for the development of the skills in their people have a lot of elements which make them successful, not at a global level. They make them understand and make them successful in a very diverse environment. And believe me, that is a very different skill set than what you would say require in a India only organization, whatever the size may be, or say for example in a promoter run organization. And that is a key element of how it also influences the people in terms of development of the skill. Of course, the magnitude is another one, because the scale and size in which these companies operate is very different in terms of both in terms of the number of countries they operate in, number of geographies they operate in, and whether it is a India out MNC or a foreign in MNC. I think that this characteristic is common. MNCs do have a global mindset in terms of, and they operate in different territories with and handle a very diverse workforce. Similarly, in terms of latitude, the latitude signifies how they formulate their policies. Mostly, they will have marketing policies and practices which are more global in nature, which have more common elements that can be kind of implemented at a global level. The next element is the rectitude, or in terms of the legal and ethical practices that allow overseas flexibility while maintaining corporate compliance. And this is one area where lawyers basically become a big influencer at the MNCs, right? Because usually they would be challenged in terms of bringing in policies which are applicable and can be implemented at a global level, rather than at a country specific level. And as you know, the laws are very country specific. They have a lot of influences on the from the local customs and the local jurisprudence as we get into the regulations, and then studying the regulations of different countries, because every country would have a different history and different practices, and then distilling them into policies that can be implemented and will be good in different countries can be quite challenging. And at the same time, maintaining ethical values. I think while we can describe, say, a ethical value of integrity and everyone understands what integrity and honesty is, but the way it is practiced in different countries and the way people respond in terms of behaviors to the same values, it will surprise you that how there is a difference in the understanding of people from different cultures, from different countries, and also with different socio-economic background. And that is a challenge in multinationals, that and they have learned that to manage those in these organizations, and that is how they have their policies built. The next one is the exactitude. In fact, again, the corporate culture tolerates a certain amount of financial and market uncertainty. So don't mistake it that they don't have strict policies. All it means is that they have the ability to distill the different accounting and market practices across different geographies and adopt their system with that level of flexibility, so that they can exercise the financial discipline that is required to perform. And the last is a fortitude, which is committed to global initiatives even in the face of setbacks. And I think the situation that we are going through now is a good example. I am sure if you are following up on different multinational corporations, you will exactly come to know how they are rolling out their global policies right now in a situation which is extraneous, challenging. They're maintaining those common policies but implementing in as per the local regulations, right? And that kind of brings out the characteristic of a global mindset, and that is also how the people should have the capability of responding to these changes. So those are the 7 large elements of what a global mindset would mean in context of a multinational. And if you reflect on each one of them, it also rubs on to the lawyers in terms of attitude and aptitude, and also the skills they should acquire in terms of each one of them. And this also is a reflection of what are the skill sets they should acquire to be successful in a MNC setting. So having said that, one of the questions that I leave for all of you on the table to think about is that in a MNC, okay, we agree that it is staffed with the most worldly and globalized talent, and people are very diversified. The products are global, but at the same time, what we see many times is that the companies or the zones are still part of one company or a one country, right? And most of the time, the people work mostly with a single culture, market, and jurisdiction, right? This is more so with the legal profession, because the laws and practices are mainly local and very national, in spite of growth of international practices. So my question would be, how does this global mindset play in this kind of a reality where I think as an individual employee or an individual legal practitioner, you are dealing with the laws of a country, and how does still a global mindset play and make you successful in a global environment? So I leave this question for all of you to think about, but and discuss among yourselves, because what this reflects is a real situation where and how does these principles that we just discussed play into making you successful in spite of this reality. So switching gears, I think the third and the last portion that I wanted to touch upon is what is why do companies hire legal professionals, right? And when I say companies, I think multinational organizations, and where the legal departments can be extremely large, diversified. Why do they hire, or what is their expectation from legal professionals? Are they hired to practice law, or they are really hired to facilitate aspects of business and strategies? And this is an important element, because many times when we meet law college students, we hear this whole expectation ki, I want to be only M&A lawyer, or I want to get into this specialization of practice of law and things like that. And how does it really play in a corporate environment, right? And how do different people see that in terms of skill set when they are interacting with you at the law college? Because and this is important element to understand, because if you can align yourself with the mindset that your people who are giving you opportunities from MNCs and your own goals, and express them in a more aligned way, I think that is where you can have more success, as compared to if there is a situation where these goals are not aligning. And I'll give you a few examples as we go through, but let us first address in terms of address the question in terms of what are these real companies really looking into you when or looking for in terms of when they hire legal professionals. So there was a survey kind of which was done in terms of all the in-house legal practitioners, in terms of what skills are required or expected of them, and how do they utilize their time. And you'll be surprised that uh, the top among all of them is management, right? So 53% of the time many of the GCs or legal professionals spend is just in managing law rather than actual practice of law. And this chart is a good reflection of it. uh, so in a global environment, when we go into MNCs, we see different permutations of the legal departments, and this is a combination of how that individual company has leveraged technology, productivity, and globalized, because many of the MNCs, as we discussed, are in different countries operating in diversified markets. And there are various ways these companies manage their operations. Some of them are very headquarter or central control centric organizations. All the policies are rolled out from the headquarters down. the organization structures are rolled from the center down. Some of them have regions like EMEA, APAC, or Americas, and they've divided the world, and then they have their subsidiaries in those countries and things like that. So there are various models in which they have developed their organizations. But of course, whatever their organization would be, and we see kind of that also reflected in how we see corporate legal departments. We see legal departments in different companies, say, like for example, in India out MNC, we would, many of the companies have a central legal department which is in the base country or the headquarter country, and then they have the same lawyers hire lawyers or are in touch with law firms in different countries, and they centrally manage the issues and seek external support. And of course, lawyers come with a price as well, and that is how they spend their money as well. This may not be the best, most cost efficient model, but also I think this is also a factor of how much business the company has in each of the locations or countries, because these are the choices that GCs make in terms of both the size and the complexity of the business spread across the world. There are also certain companies which have what we call as global vertical department hierarchies or global horizontal hierarchies, which basically also is, just to explain you, they'll have lawyers reporting into them, which are based in different countries, right? And the lawyers may be accountable to the businesses in those countries, and they can have dotted and direct relationships into the legal department. They can be well integrated in a vertical organizations or in a horizontal organization, where I think when we say vertical, it will be there is a global legal department and the dotted relationships are to the business. There is a single solid line reporting into the GC, global GC. The horizontal organizations are where the legal departments will be more distinct. They're working more closer with the businesses. They have their solid line relationships with the local business heads, and then the dotted relationships would get into the central headquartered legal organizations or zoning organizations. Similarly, there are companies which have grown inorganically. In those corporates, we see legal departments more kind of having different departments, so to say, because they have inherited legacy departments, and they will be integrated over a period of time. But until some time, they have what is called as individual. They behave like individual departments supporting their businesses. So in these various scenarios, we see different kind of legal departments, organizations across different MNCs, and the reason I bring that to you is because it is extremely important in terms of when you start making choices, because the behaviors and the factors that will help you be successful and what you can expect in those companies also is a reflection of how their legal departments are organized, right? So say for example, if you have very globally vertically integrated organizations, it does are because there will be common policies which will be rolled out. You have to behave and support local business, but primarily I think your command and control and your policies in the legal departments will be governed by the central departments. And similarly, there are companies which have very siloed legal departments in different countries. They are responsible for the local requirements and so on and so forth. But I have a map of some of the companies, how their legal departments are mapped. It will fairly give you say for example, Tata's, it has more of a central out kind of, most of the lawyers are sitting in India, they have their contacts with different law firms across the world, and that is how they manage their operations. And slowly, when they acquired different companies across the world, their legal departments were integrated into the central department, but the command and control still was at a very central level. Similarly, you have some of those IT giants there sitting there. So I think that determines a lot in terms of uh, how the legal departments would behave, and also in terms of what you can expect when you're working in many of these companies. But having said that, I think there are some very uh, important skills which, irrespective of which company you are in, right, whether it's a multinational or it's a homegrown company, I think with the situations that we are facing now, and where the business environments are getting very challenging, and also more and more reliance on digital tools are being placed. I think there are some common skills that now are becoming more important, which the HRs are now clearly looking for in people when we go and hire them, both in terms of campus or lateral. And some of them are in terms of data literacy. Uh, I think this has become extremely important, because what we are expecting is that a person, most of our departments have become paperless, lot of data analysis has become more digital. So this has become almost a basic requirement now, that the individuals should be data literate. They should be familiar with the tools that are used in the law departments, and they should have the skills in terms of turning the data or working on those tools to produce effective results. The second attribute that I think what is becoming important is critical thinking. Now, critical thinking is not in terms of the sharpness, or what we used to refer to as the IQ. It is more towards that with the digitization, the people are flooded with so much of information, right? And there are so many ways we get inundated with information now. So I think the real value is for people who can analyze this information, convert it into useful information that can be kind of put to good use. And I think that is the skill that we refer more as critical thinking, because it saves a lot of time and effort, and also analysis, if one is able to pick the right information, process it, and bring out results. I touched upon tech savviness. I think the legal departments are becoming increasingly digital, and for that matter, the workplaces are becoming more digital. So anything, this has become almost the de minimis requirement in any modern workplaces. And imagine in a situation like COVID right now, I think the only savior was that we could all work from home and be connected digitally. Imagine a company or a person who was not in that environment, he would basically be dysfunctional in this environment, and that underlines that entire importance of tech savviness and data literacy. Uh, Fourth is in terms of, I did refer to of the VUCA world. Everything is becoming uncertain. Things are changing the way very quickly. The business environment is fluctuating. No, previously, we used to have like yearly fluctuations. I think if we all are following up the business world, in the last 12 months, I think every quarter was a different flavor. I think that's the pace of change that we are seeing now. So I think any person who is mentally flexible, can adopt to new ideas and new ways of doing things, is going to be more successful than a person who does not. Similarly, creativity is another one important stuff. we call it innovativeness, we call it creativity, but it is all about uh, it is all about decision making. It is all about being thinking differently and out of the box to create solutions and moving forward. Another element that we are now moved from IQ is emotional intelligence, because not only we are expecting people to interact with a diverse force, but also be sensitive to the emotions at a remote level, right? Show the qualities of caring, show the qualities of leadership, and show the qualities that probably are much more easier traditionally to exhibit in one-to-one interactions. We are expected to show the same emotions through even the modern technical, using the technical tools and environment. So that is much more challenging right now, and I think a lot of investment organizations are doing in that regard. Cultural intelligence and diversity. I think you all understand how diverse the MNC environments are, and how important it is to adapt yourself in those environment. We touched upon leadership skills, and similarly and what it boils down to is the sharpness in judgment and complex decision making. This is not something that we are expecting law college graduates to have, but a fair amount of that is obviously expected, because rest is all what we can train them and to in the level of complexity. But what is important is not only processing their work, but also be sensitive to the communities in terms of their decision making, and also in terms of how their decisions, sensitivity in terms of how their decisions are going to affect others. And of course, in this entire game, collaboration is an important skill, because while individual contributors will be successful for some time, I think at the end, the important skill is to work it as a team in a MNC, to work with a diversified force and work collaboratively with the different stakeholders. I think these are some of the skills, if we can list out, uh, that obviously we are testing. Most of our interviews are kind of designed towards these skill sets, and these some of them have become more necessary than they were in previous, say, last 10 years. With that, I think I get to my um, next slide, which is probably the last slide in terms of, since you have heard what we are with the corporates or multinational companies are looking for, let us get into a very interesting survey in terms of what do law students think when in terms of what corporates are looking for, right? And this is a survey that was done in several campuses, and the responses were measured against proactive nature, responsiveness, politically astute, team player, project management, business understanding, and problem solver. Right. So we are this survey kind of asked different law students what do they think that the corporates were really looking for. And you can see the graph in terms of that team player, problem solver are the toppers there, apart from project management and responsiveness. And then there are other qualities which are nice to see and sometimes important and things like that. But if you see the next chart, when we asked the corporates in terms of what they were looking at their fresh campus hires, um, and the responses were expected from graduation with honors, experience in terms of law review or article writing, judicial clerkship or business clerkship, what are the companies in which they do their internships, moot court experience, or practical skills experience. And you'll be very surprised to know that the purples and the reds are all in the first and the last section. The first and the second section, you see reds there, which are important because that reflects the mental capability, the writing skills, and the analysis part of the students. But the purple is only in the last quadrant, where is basically the practice, the last P that we discussed in the Delta model, which is basically practicing the legal skills. So I think this is a good reflection. There's nothing right or wrong about this analysis, but it is a good reflection in terms of the expectations on both sides of the table, and it's also a good opportunity to reflect in terms of what skills will help you reach there. With that, I conclude my presentation. I think in this time, what is important is to stay focused on your career, be positive, think differently, be focused on your goals. And I think many of you will be going through the interviews, or would have already gone through the interviews by now. Must be preparing themselves to join these organizations that you have been selected for. With that, I wish you all the best. And for those who are still waiting for those opportunities, I think the important mantra is to stay focused. I'm sure you all will be able to meet your goals. Thank you so much. And let me know if you have any questions now.
Thank you so much, sir. Actually, I was also a beneficiary of this lecture. It was as if it is a convergence of legal plus managerial insights. So I would request students also to be little interactive. If they are having any questions, please feel free to share with sir.
If you have written anything in the chat box, do let me know, because I'm not able to locate that here.
Yes, sir. Students, you can ask any question to sir. So you can type it in chat box also. I will be sharing it on your behalf to sir. Sir, here is one question a student wants to ask. Uh, I'll read it aloud.
Yeah.
Since most MNCs don't offer internships, how can we get a feel of what it is like to work at one?
I'm not sure if they don't offer internships. I'm sure they offer internships. It's just that there are very few positions in the legal departments that are there, mm, and of course those opportunities are small. But what I would also encourage you is that don't wait for big names to come, right? There are other companies which are India out as well, and there are also many startups who are dealing with different clients or in different countries. I think that could be a good start as well if you have opportunities there. But like, for example, Cummins does have a program where our talent pipeline into the legal department does come from a lot of campus hires.
Sir, there is another question from Arushi. She wants to ask, how important and useful is company secretary degree for a lawyer working in a law firms or in house or in house?
Not important. I think those are two different skills, if you ask me. Um, mm, uh, uh, One deals more with the procedural law and the corporate side of things, more on the Companies Act. But I think the other requires a different training and analysis of law as well. If you are more interested in litigation or M&A, I think you can still be a good and a successful lawyer even if you don't have a company secretary. And of course, the company secretary leads you more into a specific field of corporate practice, right? So I don't, I, and in even internally, while we are organized, most of the corporates now have organized the secretarial departments very differently from their litigation and legal functions. While they do report maybe into a common leader, but functionally the roles and responsibilities are very well differentiated.
Thank you, sir. I hope Arushi it addresses your concern. Sir, is the chat box visible to you?
Yes, it is visible, and things do pop up as and when people write there. So
Okay, 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 okay.
able to see that.
Yeah. So, is there any other question that you want to talk with, sir, or shall we conclude the session? I think, sir, we
Thank you
have
so much,
answered the
Ashutosh.
question.
It was
We are, I, on behalf of Symbiosis Law School Pune, am very much thankful to you. Indeed, along with the student, I also was a beneficiary. So, as I told earlier, also alongside the legal reflections, it gave me some managerial insights too. So, I expect a continuing allegiance not only for the sake of this in online lecture, but in coming future also, coming time also. I hope your actual interface with the students in our college, regular training, sir.
sure, Ashutosh. I would look forward for that opportunity. And
Thank you, sir.
given the limitation of this medium, we could have only a monologue, or I
Yes,
think the interactions offer a much more interactive platform where
yes, sir.
of things can be discussed apart from the formal ones,
Yes,
right?
sir.
So I'll really look forward for that opportunity. Thank you so much,
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you
everyone,
so much.
for having me share uh, my thoughts and for today afternoon.
Thank you, sir.